Hi everybody, if you can just let me know if you can hear me, I would appreciate that. And as always, we will just give a couple minutes for everybody to join. I feel like maybe I'm too punctual today. Do we have anyone there? Okay, so I have confirmation that you can see and hear me, so that's amazing. So I think I'm still gonna give it a couple seconds for everyone to join. There we are, I see people joining. Okay, hello everybody, welcome to tonight's live class. So tonight we are doing a pro class and we are going to be doing wood burning 101 with Scorch Gel. So this was the sample that I made, so it was a wall hanging, but tonight we're going to be doing a breadboard, which I think is probably one of the more requested items. So I will run you through the design and then we will look at different techniques and we will do our project. So I will give you the do's and don'ts of wood burning, and I'll also show you the gel that I have, and I will let you know where I got it from. So if you have any questions, you're welcome to leave them in the comments. If I don't get to it, then one of the lovely admins will. So for these projects, all you're going to need is a piece of wood, and wood does matter, so I'll get into that a little bit later. If you want to do something like this, then you can get some twine, a glue gun, some Cricut removable vinyl or the stencil vinyl, and then obviously your Scorch Gel. So let's get into it. Okay, so the design portion is pretty simple. We're not going to go too crazy into it. So we're going to say new project. We're going to have a blank canvas. And as always, you're going to want to measure your items. So obviously I have a breadboard and you cannot see it, but it is in front of me, and I'm going to measure it width and length as always. So we are going to be doing 34.8. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a square and we're going to make that 34.8. We're going to unlock it, and then I'm going to measure there. We're looking at 20. Okay, so now I have our template, and that is going to help me with my design work. So this is a pro level class. If I'm moving a little bit too fast, you're more than welcome to leave your questions in the comment section as mentioned previously. If you are new to Cricut, then we do have beginner classes, so we have classes every Tuesday night. If this is your first time joining, I hope you enjoy it and I hope to see you in other classes. Okay, so we're just going to make this a little bit smaller so we can see the whole thing, and I'm just going to change this to brown just for visual sake. We're going to insert our images, so I've bookmarked them. I'm going to be using Nana's Kitchen, and I'm going to be using these lovely leaves. Okay, so I'm going to make this smaller. That's going to go in the center. This is going to go on the other side. Oopsie. Okay, so this one we are going to flip it. We're going to do vertical and then we're going to do horizontal. That one's going to go in that corner. And then we're going to do the same here. Oh, sorry, we shouldn't have flipped that. There we are. So what I'm doing now is I'm creating a stencil, and you would use this technique for any stencil, so it's not just with wood burning, it would be with anything, painting, anything you can think of. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I want my leaves to be a little bit bigger, but in order for it to be uniform, they obviously have to be the same size. So I'm going to select both of them, and I'm going to make that slightly bigger, and then I'm just going to readjust them to where I want them to be. Hello to everybody that's just joining. You haven't missed much. We are just setting up our stencil. So we're going to align these to the bottom, and that's just going to make sure that they're in the same place, obviously. Okay, then for Nana's Kitchen, so this is a solid object. I don't want all of the wording. I just wanted to say Nana's Kitchen, and I wanted to have that pretty little flourish at the bottom. So the plan is to have a design but still have it usable as an actual breadboard. So we're going to take a shape, and I'm going to slice it. So if you've watched my lives before, you know that I love the contour feature, and I use it very often, and I'm going to show you why I'm not going to use it today. So if I have to say contour, I am going to have to hide each and every one of these letters, or I'm going to have to unhide these. So it's going to be a lot easier for me to just slice it. So remember, with your slicing, it has to be 2 objects / layers. It can't be more than that. Okay, we're going to say align center horizontally so that we can make sure obviously it is where we need it to be. Oopsie. Okay, and I'm quite happy with that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just make sure that my leaves are still aligned. So I'm going to align that to the bottom. I'm just going to make sure that my image in the middle is still aligned. It is. And then I'm going to select all 3 of these, and I'm going to weld them. So the reason I'm welding them is obviously because I want to slice them out of my template, and if they are all separate objects, I would have to do them all individually, so it's easier for me to weld them. Okay, so now I'm going to select both of those, and I'm going to say slice. So what I've done now is I've created the pattern that I want. So you can see if I delete that, this is the pattern that I want to wood burn onto my chopping board. But if I move this away, you can see that it is not a solid stencil. So there's open edges, and that makes it a lot harder to work with. It's not impossible, but it does make it a lot harder. So we're going to delete this out, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert another square. I think I should have done it the other way, but it's fine. And we're going to say slice. So let's just check. Yeah, I should have done it the other way. Okay, so we're going to go back, and we're going to use that part. So basically what I want to do is I want to have my square over the edges so that it's not going to give me those open edges. It's going to be a lot easier for me to work with it. Okay, and then we can delete that, and there we have our stencil. So the only problem with this is if you look at it, it is 39.479, which is obviously too big for a normal sized mat. So we're going to make this smaller. So first I'm going to slice the edges, which yes, I could have done that previously. Okay, so first we're just going to slice the edges, making sure that we don't overlap where we want there to be that line on the edge. And we're just going to get rid of that extra bit. And you'll notice I have 3 squares, and you'll see why in a second. Okay, then we're going to slice that. I don't know if my chat's not working today or if everybody's just super quiet. Okay, now I am going to separate my template. Okay, so if we click on the original, you can see that it's still 35.525, which is too big for a 30 centimeter mat. So the maximum you can get onto a 30 centimeter mat is 29.2. So I'm going to separate it by slicing again. And now I have my template ready to go. So yes, I am going to have to apply it as two separate pieces, but it's completely fine. Okay, so now we can make this. So I'm using the Cricut removable vinyl, and because I'm using the removable vinyl, I'm going to be using the removable vinyl setting. Let's save it. Okay, I'm seeing comments now. So Jessica asked, how often do we have these lessons? So it's every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. Unless there is an event going on, then we might skip them, but you will always find them pinned to the featured section of the group, so it's very easy to find. Okay, so we're going to be doing it on mat, and you can see that it's separated it nicely for me, and I'm going to be able to use one piece of vinyl. Okay, now we are going to cut this. So I'm using my light grip mat. And as you can see, I'm using the Cricut removable vinyl. So I actually found that I've been using this a lot lately. I use it for cardstock, I use it for stencils. I've actually used it for a lot of stencils lately. And it's super handy. It's also really nice for seasonal projects. If you want to make some like home decor for Easter, okay, I know Easter's gone, but work with me. Easter, Christmas, anything really, even birthdays, if you want to decorate the windows on birthdays, I don't know, for a birthday party, or pretty much anything. It's very easy to remove. Okay, it's not very easy, but it's not going to leave residue behind. So we're going to be using removable vinyl setting. Okay, and we're going to let that cut. So I'm using the Maker 3. It doesn't really matter what machine you use. You've seen how I separated the stencil into different parts. So obviously the most important thing is that you don't want to have open edges. So just make sure that wherever you separate it, there is a thin line at the end. And you can break that up into as many parts as you have to. It does create a little bit of extra work when you're applying it to your item, but again, it's completely fine. It's not the end of the world. So if you have a joy machine and you want to do something like this, you definitely can. You just have to be a little bit creative in how you're going to do it. Zelda says she's eating and watching. Zelda, will you please tell us what you are eating? Because I have not eaten yet. And that just made me very hungry. So I'm getting my weeding tool ready. I love that everybody is doing something different. So Deirdre is making coloring cards and she's watching. Wendy was late because dinner demanded her attendance. And Zelda's eating. So while we wait for this to cut, I'd love to know if there's any new people, even people that have watched our lives before. What would you really like to learn, or what would you really like to see in a class? So one of the things that comes up very often is engraving. So we do have that on the cards, but it's a little bit challenging because we try to keep them to an hour, and obviously engraving can take very long sometimes. So that one's a little bit challenging, but it is on the cards. So I'd love to know if there's any other things that you would love to see in a class, any things you've been battling with. So Layla told her kids that it's midnight and I honestly think that's the best mom hack that I've ever seen, ever. Oh, and other Zelda said that we have her full attention. She's spending time with us and I really appreciate that. I must say though, although this is a pro class, it's really not difficult, and you're going to see it is quite easy. Okay, so that's all we need the machine for, but I think that is kind of the most important part. So now it's important to remember that you are not going to be leaving your design behind. I don't know if you can see it, I probably should have chosen another color, but you're not going to be leaving your design behind. You're actually going to be taking the design out. So it's very easy to get confused with that when making stencils. Do not get confused. And if you see any pieces are lifting, just nudge it down and then go again. And if you are very, very careful, maybe you could use the designs for something else. I honestly have not been successful in that, but maybe you will be. So you can see as I go, I just kind of nudge the edges down with my weeding tool. And we are revealing our stencil. So when we are done here, we will obviously apply it, and then I do have some little tricks to show you, and I will just give you the rundown on the heat guns. And obviously not all heat guns are made equally, and not all wood is made equally. So I hope that this is gonna help you to have a good base to kind of venture out and do this on your own. And you can see the weeding's quite easy. I love it. I love stencil weeding. The only thing you should be careful of is obviously the little pieces inside of the letters. And you'll see further down below I have quite a few small pieces. So but it is much, much easier. we are almost done. Nice and easy. So I definitely should have chosen a different color so that you could see it nicely. The light reflecting makes it a bit difficult, but you can see I've taken my whole design out. As always, matte upside down, and you're going to remove your material that way. And I'm just going to separate my two pieces. And the reason for that is that I don't want to waste too much of the vinyl, because like I said, I use it very often. It's very, very handy. And I must say that's one of the questions I get asked probably the most is, what can I use removable vinyl for? And like I said, it's one of my favorites. Okay, then we're just going to remove our outside to reveal our block. Oopsie. There we are. And there we have our stencils. So obviously that one goes there. Does it? No, it goes like that. And then that one goes in the middle. So now we're going to apply our transfer tape, and you can use this more than once. So don't throw it away once you're done. So I'm actually going to cut for there. And I'm using a standard grip transfer tape. I'm not using strong grip. Okay. And I'm going to apply that onto there. And this is my extra large scraper, and I love it for bigger designs. It just makes it so much easier. So we're going to scrape that down nicely, and I'm just going from the back. Oh my goodness, so Zelda has said she's still sitting, her Maker 4 is still in the box, and honestly I am horrified. So if you didn't know, which I'm sure everybody does know because it's probably the hottest news right now, Cricut has a Maker 4, and it's one of those things where you're like, do I really need it? And then you actually use one and you realize just how much you need it. Absolutely beautiful machine. The color is amazing. It is super fast. The cuts are beautiful. So yes, if you have the opportunity to get one, definitely do, and take it out of its box. Okay, so I'm doing the rolling method. So if you are new to Cricut and somebody tells you about the rolling method, that is what I'm doing now. So I'm just snipping this because it's very loud. So what I'm doing is I'm rolling it back on itself, and the reason I'm doing that is I'm actually pressing the vinyl down as I roll. If anything lifts, then I just roll down, press, and slide backwards. So I know it feels like we're just jumping in, but I promise you I will explain a lot more as we go, and you will realize there is actually a method to my madness. Okay, so here is our wooden board. I got this from Checkers, and I just prepared it by lightly sanding it with, I think it was an 800 grit. Here is still very rough, so that is also why I didn't want to do a full board design. Okay, so I'm going to turn this upside down just so that it's easier for me to apply it. And I'm just going to line this up nicely. So I'm actually sliding it on the edge so that I can see where the edge is. And we obviously just want to make sure that that's nice and flat. So you can see it's going over the edge, not a train smash. We're just going to fold that down, and then I'm going to scrape that on there. So I should have actually folded it once I was done, but it's fine. Okay, so if I pull up on this edge, it's going to pull my whole thing off, my whole design. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the most secure edge, which is this one here. And again, I'm going to sort of roll back on itself. Now the reason I do this is it applies the least amount of pressure to your vinyl, so you're not ripping upwards, and you're not going to pull your whole design off. So you can see I'm moving slowly so I can see if anything lifts as I go. And we're good. Okay, now I'm going to reuse this piece, so I'm just going to snip it quickly. So if you are asking questions or you are chatting to me specifically in the comments, I'm not ignoring you, but I am just having an issue seeing the comments at the moment. So again, one of the lovely admins will definitely get back to you. So I think we might have gone a bit skew here. We might have. And then we're just going to apply this one, so maybe upside down was better for me. Okay. We're going to give this another good scrape. Okay, now we are going to apply it. So when I bought the wood gel, Scorch Gel, I obviously did some research and I was trying to look at the best way to apply it, and everybody suggested sort of like wiping it on with like a card, so like taking something like this and sort of just rubbing it across. And I tried that, but what I found is that it saturated the wood way too much. So I have the Scorch Gel. I got this from Takealot, and when you look at the picture, it just shows you one of these little containers, so it's like one of those little medicine containers, but when it arrives, it's actually 2 of them. And then you may think, okay, but that's a really little bit of Scorch Gel, but you're going to see now how much we actually use, which is not much at all. Okay, so you can see, can you see, I'm using a tiny bit, and I'm putting it onto my stencil, not directly onto my wood, and then I'm just wiping over. So the reason I'm putting it onto my stencil is that I want to get an even amount on all of the wood, and I don't want to have a huge patch sitting on any like certain place of the wood for a very long time. Now the reason for that is I obviously don't want any bleeding, and the best way to do that is to put a really little bit, let it sit for a little bit, and then you can go over it again. So you can see I'm going up and I'm going down, and the reason I'm doing that is obviously I want to get all the parts of the stencil. I don't want to miss corners or anything like that. So I don't think you're going to be able to see it on the video, but I can actually see that the wood is changing color. So it looks a little bit darker, sort of when wood gets wet. That's what it looks like. Oopsie, I did the wrong thing there, but it's fine. So I'm just going to move very quickly at spreading that. And obviously being very careful not to go over the edge of your stencil. You don't want that. So you just obviously got to be careful, make sure you get it everywhere, and try not get it bleeding out the edges of your stencil. And you'll see if it starts to build up anywhere, and then you can sort of just paint in the opposite direction. That's going to help you bring it out a little bit. So as you can see, I'm using a really tiny bit, and that is why this is actually a very cost-effective wood burning gel, and you could probably get a whole bunch of designs out of this. So we're going to put that there. That was a bit too much actually. And what's nice as well is as you're going, you can actually see it reflecting off of your vinyl, so you will know whether or not you were able to actually saturate your design. So now I'm just going to go over my original part again. And then here, So I just go over it twice. You probably could go over it once. I don't think twice is absolutely necessary. I just want to be safe. Okay, now we're going to leave that to dry for a bit. So you do have to wait for the Scorch Gel to actually sort of dry on your item. You can't just do it straight away. So while that's drying, we're going to put our mini press on. Can I wash and reuse the brush? Yes, I can. So that was Francis that asked that. This is a normal paintbrush. It's not a brush that I got with it. So this is just a very soft bristle brush. So I'm just going to stick that there. Let me move it out of the way. I can't remember the name of the company, but it was from what do you call this place? Crazy Store. So they were very cheap, but they are super soft. They are absolutely stunning. I don't know if you can see that, but yeah, they're very soft. So yes, you can just wash it with soap and water, and then you can reuse it. So I've used that one I think 3 times now. Okay, so I'm putting the mini press onto 3, so it's the highest setting, and I'm going to stick that one side. Okay, now we're going to talk 101. So I have this heat gun, and you might recognize it. It actually is supposed to have a red sort of nozzle on the end. So the correct heat gun to use would actually be one of those sort of ones that look like a gun. So the ones that kind of have the glue gun look. So it's more of an industrial heat gun. That would be the correct one to use. If you have one like this, what I would suggest doing, so on the top it has a red plastic sort of funnel on it, and it's got one screw on that side. So what I would suggest doing is take that off. So unscrew the top and take it off before you start this. You may be able to see I've actually melted mine. So it needs quite a lot of heat, and you actually have to do it for quite a while to be able to get it to activate. So with something small like this, what actually happens is the heat gun gets too hot, and then it just melts itself. It melts itself basically. So I noticed once I had been doing it for quite a bit that it started to melt the sort of funnel that was on it, and that's when I tried to take it off, and I noticed that this sort of edging here had also melted. So I think if I had taken that off first, everything would have been okay. I wouldn't have had that heat building up in there. So that is very important. The other thing I want to show you is our sample one that we made. Okay, so you wouldn't have been able to see this in the picture, but I'm going to point it out to you so that you know what not to do. If you have a look there, you can see that there's actually little circles. So what was happening was I was putting the heat gun directly against it, and wherever this piece of metal, that piece of metal there, touched, it actually left little circular marks. So yes, you can sand it out, but it takes a lot of time and a lot of energy, whereas you can just avoid doing that altogether. The next thing I want to talk about is knots in your wood. So I obviously don't know if this wood was treated with anything, but you can see that it's got little knots in it, and you can see here that the design is not great where that sort of knot is. So what was happening is, as I was heating this up, these little knots were actually leaking some type of liquid. So I would assume that these have been treated with something, and because the knots, I don't know, they're not the same as the rest of the wood, they obviously don't hold whatever it was treated with very well. It would actually like seep this liquid out, this brown liquid, and then it would obviously wash the wood burning paste out of it. So those are things to just be mindful of. we are going to see with this one if the knots make a difference. So again, this is a cutting board, so this is like food grade. It's from Checkers. It was super cheap. I think it was 60 Rand. So my next piece of advice is to avoid this situation, you're going to want to do tests first. So we're obviously going to see what happens with the knots, but I had to know if the wood would actually burn or if it had something on it that would stop it doing that. So I actually did a little design on the back, and I chose something that could work with it, so that if it worked out great, I hadn't ruined my design. So always test it first with a little piece and work it into your design. Do something that you can actually use with your design. Okay, we're going to put that aside. And then I'm going to show you. So this is another piece of tester wood that I had, and I've actually put two little flowers on here, so we're going to test them. Let's see if you can see them. There we are, you can see it. So you can see it's like a little pink outline, very bland, if that's the word. So there I've already put the Scorch Gel, and we're going to test it with the mini press versus the heat gun. So what I've done here is I actually tested the mini press, I tested the heat gun, and I tested my big press. So with this sort of thing, I found that using the mini press and the heat press made it a lot quicker. So I didn't have to sit here for a very long time applying the heat, waiting for it to activate, because it does take quite a while. It's not a very it's not a very quick process. So I think that's something that you have to be mindful of. It does take a long time. I think if you have an industrial heat gun, it might go a lot quicker, but this one does take quite a while. So I was looking at different ways we could do this. So with the mini press, I found that it wasn't dark enough for my liking, but it was a good way to accelerate the process. With the big press, it worked really well here, but when I moved on to a bigger design, what happened was, so it wasn't this one, it was the other one that had the knots of wood. What happened was everywhere that there were knots, it leaked and it saturated my baking paper, and I felt like I wasn't getting even heat. So another thing that I think happened is when you apply a heat press to anything, it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's your mouse pads that you want to use infusible ink on, or an infusible ink shirt, or even just a normal shirt that you're doing HTV on, there's always moisture in it. So that moisture is from the air. It is what it is. So that moisture, because you have a big press on it, the moisture is not escaping, and it was sort of messing around in there. Okay, so just to show you on the edges, I don't know if you can see it, there's actually like little lines running out, and that obviously happened because I had used the swiping method. So it oversaturated the wood and I got bleeding. Okay, so here's our first one. We're going to take our mini press, which is on our hottest setting. Let's just make sure we're over it, and we're going to hold it down there. So you want to go like a sort of short burst at first, just check it. So I just want to show you, there you can see that pink is kind of changing. Another thing with the mini press is I would not suggest doing this with a larger design, because it works really well when you hold it in one place, but it doesn't work very well when you're moving it around constantly. So I don't suggest it for a very big design. Little design, it can work. So if you don't have a heat gun, you want to try this out, you can definitely do it. So you can see it's getting hotter. So Francis asked, what temperature do I have the mini press on? It is on number 3, which is the highest setting. if it could go higher, I probably would. So if you're going to use a big press, you're going to take it up to its highest setting, which is 205. And you're going to do it in bursts of 15 seconds. So the reason for that is obviously you don't want to burn your wood, and you want to let any of that moisture evaporate. So there you can see. Now I'm just going to apply my press straight to it. If you do what I'm doing right now, make sure you wipe your press afterwards once it's cooled down, because you don't want this on other things. So you can see it's getting darker, but it does take a while. So what you can do at this point, if you're just trying to speed it up, is you can actually move over to your heat gun, and then you can do it like that. So we are also running over slightly, so if you have things to do, this is going to obviously give you the groundwork to be able to do what I'm doing here. I'm going to explain all of it here, and then I'm going to move on to that one. Okay, so you can see that is getting darker. So also with your mini press, what's going to happen is the wood around it is going to get slightly scorched. It's not a train smash. And the other thing I noticed is that it doesn't get into the grooves, so that could be a bit of a problem for you. Okay, so you can see that the process is working. I could go for longer if I wanted to, but I don't want to keep you here all night, so I'm not going to go for longer. Okay, so I'm going to do this now with the heat gun, this one in the corner. I don't know if you can see it there. I don't think you can, but it's there, I promise. Okay, so with your heat gun, you do not want the tip to actually touch your wood. It's going to burn your wood. You want to, and I'll hold it at an angle, and then if you do it the way that I'm doing it, at this angle, you can actually see as it starts to burn, and you can move slowly. So I am going to put the microphone off because it is very loud, but I am here. I've told you what the process is. Now we're going to do it. So you can see that I'm working at an angle, and I don't know if it's science, I don't know if it's like the heat rising thing, but I found that working at an angle, I'm able to get it nice and dark a lot quicker. So I'm not going to finish this one. I've showed you the process. We're going to move on to this one so that those who want to stay can obviously watch to the end, and if you've learned enough, then you are most welcome to leave. No, I'm not asking you to leave, but I do understand that people have kids and they have all sorts of things. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove our stencil. And you can see I'm trying to hold the stencil up because I obviously don't want to get any wood burning residue onto the board where it shouldn't be. And I do find the tweezers very helpful for this. Sorry, I see that everybody was very confused about why it was so quiet. So, I mean, I can put it on so you can hear, but it is super loud. And I know that my laptop actually increases the sound of stuff like that for some reason. So I just didn't want to give anybody a heart attack. Okay, so why don't we do this with the vinyl on? So the reason for that, there's actually two reasons. Number one, the vinyl will just melt and shrink, and then number two, when it melts and shrinks, it's actually going to leave glue residue on your board and it's not going to look good. So that is why we remove it. Remember, vinyl, normal sticker vinyl, should not be used with heat. And again, you're probably not going to see it on the camera, but I can actually see the pink residue on the board where I've applied it. So I think that's also nice. And if you wanted to, I'm pretty sure you could apply, more. But what I would suggest is just wait until it's dry, because you don't want to oversaturate your wood and get bleeding. I feel like this class has flown by so quickly and I just don't even know how, to be honest. We're almost there. So I don't know, does everybody want to hear my glue gun? I mean, not my glue gun, my heat gun going. I don't think it would be very fun to listen to it. It's kind of like a hairdryer, pretty much. That's what it sounds like. Okay, so I'm going to put the volume off again, and you're basically just going to watch me wood burn this, and then we're going to see the end result. So I'm going to do the same process. I will let you just hear this. So as you can hear, very loud, probably waking up some people's kids. So that's why I'm just going to keep the volume off while So I do just want to touch on this quickly. So you'll notice that in certain places it goes very quickly, and then in other places it doesn't go very quickly. And the reason for that is because the wood needs to actually heat up. So here it's sort of heated up, but well, here it was obviously more heated up, but when I go this side, it's not that heated up. I think that's the wording. So I'm gonna put you on mute again so you can enjoy the silent movie. I mean, I honestly, let me actually do this. So I'm just gonna put the volume down a bit. So I think we can all see the wood burning. It's going to take quite a while for me to finish, but you can see that I kind of move with it. Obviously, like I said, a bigger heat gun is going to be a lot better. So if you have a choice, I would not go with this one. I would definitely go with the bigger one, and with the bigger one you're not going to use the same techniques that I'm using, so that's just something to remember. Obviously, if there's more heat, you're going to want to move away from it a lot more, so just be mindful of that. Work with what you have and do a little test first. So I'm going to finish this so that I can share a picture on the group with you tomorrow, and I'm going to let you all go home to your families because we have run over time. So Paula had said please be silent for the heat gun national anthem. I'm so sorry. So I am just going to finish this off with the heat gun exactly like I've been doing now, and I will share this with you on the group tomorrow. So thank you so much for watching. I really enjoy spending this time with you all, and I'm so sorry that I've kept you over tonight, but I hope that it's been worth it, and I hope that I'm going to see a lot of wood burning projects on the group in the coming weeks. Thank you all and have a lovely evening. So Shanae has actually, sorry, I know I say goodbye. So she's asked which heat gun is best, the glue gun shape. Yes, so you're going to want an industrial one. This is a craft one. If anybody has any questions in the comments that were not answered, or if you're watching back on this later and you need some answers, I will check back on it and I will try to answer everybody. So again, thank you so much for watching, and I can't wait to do this again soon.